I don't want to put the world to rights. I just don't like people who put the world to wrongs. Welcome to AMI Audiobook Review. I'm Jacob Shamansky with Rami Amuthan and technical producer Nisreen Abdelmajid. That quote that I just read was from the Jack Reacher series that was recommended by Aamer Kahn. But we're going to talk about it a little later, though.
Yep.
I want to just get right into this because this is such a stupid conversation, but I feel like there's so much to talk about. So when you're reading a print book, you just sit there, look down at your book, and be quiet. Whereas when you're listening to an audiobook, you have your hands free and your feet to walk around, no problem. And you can multitask and do all sorts of things. It gives you so much flexibility. And I want to talk about what everybody here does with that extra flexibility. And what I've come to learn is that everybody does different stuff when they're reading audiobooks. And I've come across some weird habits. And I'm sure you have too, Rams.
Yeah. We used to ask this question a lot in season 1. Like, what do you do while you're listening to audiobooks? And we have heard some interesting answers, yes.
And some interesting answers that I feel like will actually pull you away from your appreciation of an audiobook.
Sure.
Like, too distracting, I would argue.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then later in the second half, we're talking with Aamer Kahn. He prepared a trivia game revolving around autobiographies. I'm looking forward to that one.
Okay.
So just to be clear, like the conversation that we're having here isn't about like our book habits in terms of like what genres and authors we choose to read. It's specifically about how we read our audiobooks. And
yeah, like how we physically spend our time.
Yeah, keyword on how. Exactly. Like physically, how do you set yourself up? So to get started, what, in your opinion, is the ideal setup for you to be fully immersed in an audiobook? Niz, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so for me, I like to listen to audiobooks while I'm cleaning. I feel like it's soothing.
Yeah.
That's your ideal? That's your default?
That's my ideal,
Okay.
my default. So when I start to clean, that's when I'm like, okay, I want to listen to a book. Another thing, when I'm getting dressed or commuting, something that's not too distracting, you know, because I've heard people where they're like, you know, around a bunch of people and they're listening to an audiobook, and I just don't think that makes sense to me.
Yeah, there's no way.
What is too distracting for you?
Well, okay, you mentioned commuting. For me, commuting is the ideal. If I'm sitting in a moving vehicle with my earphones in, I am very much immersed. Now, that could change, like the second part of your question, what's too distracting? That could change if I'm commuting, but I'm not sure where my stop is on the TTC, and I got to get off somewhere, and I'm like, wait, am I on? Am I off? And then even if I do know where my stop is, if it's not like something that I can pay attention to just because of the veering of the bus, like, oh, it's the bus turns, that's my stop kind of thing, then I'll just be thinking about it too constantly. So it's a bittersweet, but it's still my ideal. Like, I love getting in a long car ride, bus ride, train ride, pop in an audiobook.
Yeah.
Prefer it more than music, actually.
Commuting works as long as the commute is decently long. Like, do you listen to an audiobook on the bus if the bus ride is 15 minutes?
Sometimes, yes. Because because sometimes you're already into the book, right? You're already in it. So it's not necessarily starting a new book or picking up at a place where you're like, what is this book again? If you're super into it, and you're just waiting for it all day long, 15-minute commute is plenty of time.
Let me tell you why that doesn't work for me.
Speed up your books, people.
Go off.
Let me tell you why this doesn't work for me. Because if I listen to an audiobook for like a very short time and then I stop it again, I have to listen back to what I just listened to.
Facts. Yes. I'm 100% with you, Niz. Yeah, you need to listen for a decent amount of time to get properly into it. Like a 10-minute listening session does not do it for me. Like 30 minutes minimum.
Minimum? Come on. No, 15 minutes is fine. Like 5-6 minutes, and especially if you're getting on and getting off, that's too distracting. But 10-15 minutes is plenty of time.
That might not be long enough to go through like an entire scene, depending on the book. Like,
but it could be. What if you've been thinking about this book all day? You're not going to take that 15-minute time slot? Anyways, we're really side noting here.
No. But I do want to back up on cleaning, though, Niz, because like if you're listening for an hour. Are you going to be cleaning for an hour? That sounds exhausting.
What? An hour is minimum for cleaning. Sorry, we're not going
Yeah.
to get into cleaning habits. Go on, Niz.
But it's true. It's true. It is. No, Rems is
Yeah,
right.
what the heck?
And when I clean, I like get into it and I start to deep clean everything else.
Mm,
And
okay.
I notice
Hours.
other things.
Hours.
So when I clean, I get into grind. So I like listening to an audiobook for
Yeah.
that long.
You forget how
amount.
long you've been cleaning.
It's true because you start
Yeah.
in one corner and you're like, I have all the cleaning products out. I might
Yup.
as well
And
start
guys,
doing the
I have a
rest.
small apartment. So
True.
I still feel like it takes like 45 to an hour to clean everything.
Yeah,
So-
you start cleaning and then after a while you realize, oh my God, I just finished my book and I need a new one.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
Oh, that's ideal. That's ideal, actually.
Okay, what about you, Rams?
Cooking.
Ideal. Oh, cooking?
Cooking,
Oh.
100% cooking.
I never thought of that.
I never, like, I will listen to music while commuting or listen to music while cleaning, but I never listen to music while cooking. It's always an audiobook or a podcast or a TV show, right? Like
That's
just
such
something
a good
dialogue.
idea.
Yeah. I find cooking to be my like haven, like it's just the best part of the house, the best time of days when I'm cooking, the best things that I can be doing with my hand. I love cooking overall. So putting on a book, and here's where I will say every other time it's earphones only, right? Vacuuming, commuting, whatever. It's always earphones with an audiobook. With cooking, I don't mind propping up a speaker in my kitchen because it's tiny anyways, and listening out loud to an audiobook. I
Right,
find
because you need to hear the sizzle.
yeah,
At least we
man.
do. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, I find it exactly. I find that it encompasses the space, and I love that with an audiobook in the kitchen.
It has to be a recipe that's kind of autopilot.
Yes.
Right? Like it's
Yep.
one thing to make scrambled eggs, it's another to make
Yeah.
a very complicated, I don't know, lobster stew that
True.
you've never made before.
It is routine cooking that I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
But the thing is, most of the time you're doing routine cooking.
fact.
Right. You could probably make your favorite meals like without being able to see or hear or smell.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can do it like behind your back,
Right, like you're not necessarily paying attention to what's going on. You're not pausing and unpausing the audiobook, like it's just going. How about you?
I like to be sitting upright on a sofa with a cup of coffee. That's
Oh.
the ideal with a speaker. I do like a speaker, but that's mostly because I like to protect my ears. I don't like wearing headphones too much, and I wear headphones all day for work.
So you're not really doing anything. This is a relaxation mode.
Well, the activity is chugging coffee.
All
As soon
right.
as I finish it, I make another one. But I'm also a fidgeter. So once I finish my 2 cups of coffee, I have like fidget spinners or like a Rubik's Cube with tactile markings on it that I like to just like twist around.
How long is this listening session?
Minimum 30 minutes. On
Okay.
average, I'd say my listening sessions are like 2 hours.
Like 2 hours straight.
Yeah.
2 hours straight just sitting there
Yeah,
chugging
on a-
coffee.
Couch.
Well, not 2 hours worth of
Okay,
coffee.
the coffee
like-
thing is I can relate to, but just sitting there,
Yeah.
even with a fidget spinner, I would
That is focused.
I would keep moving. I would keep getting up. I would keep trying to do something, think of something to do.
I will
So-
occasionally cook while listening to
I'm
audiobooks
impressed.
or like take my lunch break while listening to an audiobook, but like we're talking about ideal conditions, right? Like my
Right.
favorite time to listen to an audiobook is when I'm fully immersed and actually giving it my attention because it annoys me when I'm reading something and I realize like, oh, like I didn't exactly retain what was
Yeah.
being said in the last chapter. Like that really frustrates me. I put a lot of effort into actually listening because
Yeah.
I don't know, I find it easy to not retain things when you're listening to audiobooks. It's so easy to be
Yeah,
distracted
you're completely.
or not even just to be distracted, but just like roam away in your own thoughts thinking about whatever's bothering you at any given
Jacob,
time.
you know what's crazy is that I'm like thinking about it this way that you're doing nothing. You're so focused on the audiobook and it works for you. For me,
Opposite.
I would be the opposite where I would overthink about something else and I would not retain anything from the audiobook.
Interesting.
So if I was just sitting there and listening to the audiobook, I would be so distracted about like overthinking or thinking about something I have to do or something that just happened. So I would be not absorbing
Unfocused.
anything
Yeah.
from the audiobook. I would not be focused. So
Counterpoint,
that's so interesting.
maybe you need a better audiobook.
Nah.
No,
I do
don't think it
agree.
matters.
I do agree to some sense that like the focus part needs to be worked on probably, but I agree with you though, Niz. I'm leaning to your end more than Jacob's because Jacob, I like the idea of like laying in bed listening to an audiobook, but I swear I fall asleep before the 15-minute timer. Just
Yeah.
being horizontal, I'm done.
Exactly, because you're not
You're not
doing anything physically.
listening.
Yeah.
You're easily falling asleep or like in your head and then you're gone.
Well, that's why I specify that I sit
You have to
upright
sit.
on
Yeah, you
a
have to
sofa.
sit.
You're not laying down, otherwise you're napping, right?
You're out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But who wants to like sit on a couch? I want to lay on my couch, curl up. Anyway, but I agree with Niz. I have to be doing something or feeling like alert in some way. If not, then it feels like I'm just kind of forcing myself to focus, which feels distracting.
Having to do with like trying to not fall asleep, I find it funny that there are some like sleep timers on, I think it's Audible's audiobook player. And I think
You
there's a
never
couple other
use
ones.
a sleep timer? You're
Never.
talking about
I never ever touched it.
Yeah, I was going to say you're talking about it as if you're just discovering that this might be an option. I use sleep
How?
timers everywhere. They're everywhere.
But how ridiculous is it that you're setting up
Just
your book?
in
You're just
case.
listening to your book.
Okay, first
And
of
with the
all.
intention of falling asleep to it?
Yeah, sometimes.
That's ridiculous.
Sometimes. So, like, if you're rereading a book and you're just putting it on in the background to soothe, you guys don't do that?
To soothe?
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Like, you just put on a book, like you're rereading, like you're watching a, like, white noise, right? Then you have sleep timers in case you fall asleep. Number two, because a lot of us do actually like relaxing and listening to our audiobooks and falling asleep, we have to put a sleep timer or else we'll never be able to find the spot again. Even if you're like listening at a beach, for example, during a vacation or by the water, you can fall asleep. Sleep timers are amazing. They're fun.
My dad
helpful.
told me that he puts the sleep timer on every time he listens to audiobooks, like late at night when he can't sleep, except he rewinds his books all the time because he doesn't remember
true.
anything.
Yeah.
Dad, it must take you forever to get
Yeah,
through
I wouldn't
books.
either though.
So use the sleep timer.
He does,
Put in
yeah.
a 10-minute sleep timer. Yeah.
10-minute. Okay, but how does it actually work?
You just pick your increment. Wow, seriously. So you hit sleep timer and then you have the choice of, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, an hour, however long you want your sleep timer to be, and it just turns off. Audible's nice because it fades out.
Wait, this is possibly stupid question though. Does it detect if you fell asleep?
No, it's just the timer.
That would be pretty cool though.
Yeah, because it's true. There have been times where I'm so cozy, but I haven't actually fallen asleep with the sleep timer going off, and I'm like, no, now I have to get out of my position to turn the book back
Do you
on.
ever get so lazy that as it's fading out, you don't even bother picking up your phone?
Absolutely
You're
not.
just like-
No, I just fall asleep. Even though I was awake.
Oh my God. Okay, well, I have a big list of things that people do as a multitasking while they're listening to an audiobook. And you guys let me know like what you think of them in terms of like, do you think it's too distracting? Like where
All
you
right.
stand on them. Doing the dishes.
Yep. Mundane task.
Yeah, that's a great
Do it.
one. Autopilot mode.
Yep.
Yeah, you can do really quickly. Laundry. That's a
Sure.
great one.
Yep.
That's a really good one. Going for a walk.
Yes.
Yes.
Probably doesn't apply to us, but going for a run.
I jog
Doesn't
and
apply
yes.
to us.
Yeah.
Cleaning.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely a good one. Cooking and eating.
Mhm.
Yeah, actually, eating it kind of goes
Eating,
with
no.
cooking, right?
Sure.
What?
No?
Eating, no. I
Why
feel
not?
like I like to have a conversation with people when I'm
But if
eating.
no one's around, would you put on an
Oh.
audiobook?
Yeah, what if you
Yeah,
live
okay.
alone like
She's
us
like,
sad,
"No."
lonely people?
So sad. No one's around.
Yeah, then maybe like, yeah, I do it.
Okay, working out.
No.
No.
Yeah, I agree.
Jacob and I have talked about this before. I can't work out to an audiobook.
Yeah.
Where are you supposed to get the pump energy?
Yeah,
Yeah, me too.
you know what? I tried doing it. I really tried. I tried doing it. I think it depends on the workout. Like if you're on the treadmill or the elliptical, then I need pumpy music.
Yeah.
But
Pumpy.
if you're I need hype music. But if you're using different other machines, then I would
Like
say
strength training?
I would, yeah, exactly. Then I would be down to it, and I've done it before.
Honestly, I find it too distracting. I feel like I need to mentally be somewhere else when I'm working out.
Yeah, and when you work out, it's very much full body, including your mental, right?
Yeah. And so, like, turning on a book just feels so counterintuitive.
I will say, though, it does, like, I can work out while listening to an audiobook. It's just that listening to music is so much better.
Yeah.
Listening to music while working out is just a cheat code.
Yeah.
You notice you literally get, well, you don't literally get stronger, but it really feels that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's also a category that's kind of like hygienic, like painting your nails, doing your hair, and flossing.
What? None of the, I don't know.
I love flossing while
It's
listening
so
to audiobooks.
specific, though. I'm going to turn on my audiobook. I need to floss.
But like the keyword here, it's like everything is in autopilot
How long
mode.
are you flossing for?
I know. 30 minutes
think
minimum.
I have very tight teeth. It takes me a long time.
Okay.
I like listening to audiobooks when I'm straightening or curling my hair, because that takes
time.
45 to an hour. Yeah, so that's an ideal time.
Do you accidentally burn yourself, though?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have burnt marks all over.
Oh, boy.
This is for the grandmas out there knitting.
Oh, it makes sense. Totally.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, just because it takes up a lot of time, and usually people who knit always do it while like watching TV or something. So
Exactly.
it was always meant to
Yeah.
be like an autopilot thing, playing with a fidget toy. That's
You already got that covered?
I added that one. Yeah, draw in a coloring book.
I
Like
don't
those
know
adult
what a
coloring
blind
books?
equivalent of
I
this
feel
would
like
be.
that sounds therapeutic.
Yeah, it sounds kind of nice.
Yeah.
Okay, and this one's a bit of a galaxy brain thing. Following along with a print book, as in like having the print and audiobook at the same time. This is really popular, actually.
I wondered how popular it would be. Oh,
I see it
I
online
wanna
all the
try
time
that.
in like reviews and stuff. People they say that it's like one of the best ways to listen.
because of the retaining factor.
Yeah, the
again.
retaining factor is next
Retention.
level. Yeah. You know, there is one thing that I do miss from reading print books, and that's being able to like write notes on the margins. And if you do it like this with listening and reading print at the same time, like you still get that aspect and like writing notes. Like you ever see like people who have like post-it notes all over their
Yes.
books, their print books?
But are you writing while listening? Like that sounds distracting as
No,
heck.
no. Well, you'd have to pause it.
Yeah. See, and I don't like pausing.
Well, something I've taken to doing lately is you can add bookmarks in audiobooks
Yes.
now. And I do bookmark sections that I like and I go back through them. So it's kind of the equivalent.
Again, it takes time. Like I appreciate the ways that you can do these things, but like for me, I don't even like pausing when I don't know a word, which sounds terrible. But I'm
Yeah,
like,
that does
oh,
sound
gosh, I
bad.
have to pause and then I have to ask Google. what the
Yeah, just
word
ask
means,
Google.
and then
It's
I'm
so
like, I'll
fast.
fill in the blanks later. No, it's not so fast. And
Just
then you have
double tap on your phone and say, hey,
That's the other
thingy.
thing. You're dealing with voiceover and screen readers, and oh my gosh, I just hate getting out of the realm of listening.
You literally don't even have to
Yeah.
move, though.
It's so much work.
Don't you want to know the definition
Sorry.
of words you don't know?
Yes, later. Somebody else
You
keep
will. I guarantee you don't remember.
Yeah, obviously not. That's the
Okay.
problem.
Okay, here's some weird ones that came. Okay, I'm not trying to be too judgy, but there's just no way around it. Okay, let me know what you guys think. People watching at a coffee shop.
What?
What?
I mean, yeah, but doesn't that sound distracting? Like you should
Also-
be doing that in silence.
From other people's perspective, you're just doing nothing and staring at them.
Yeah.
It's not like
That's
you're
what I'm
peeking
trying to
over a
imagine.
book. It's
I
not
don't
like-
know. No, I don't know if that'll stand out anymore because nowadays everyone's got earbuds in. Everyone's staring out into space with earbuds in.
Yeah, but usually that's accompanied by like looking at a screen. If you're listening to an
Is it,
audiobook, you're
though?
just like staring out
Come on,
into space.
podcasts are a thing.
Okay, this one's very mystical. Stare deeply to a dancing fire.
What? Oh, I guess you could add that to your regime of sitting on the couch upright with the coffee mug and staring into a fire.
Very intellectual. Apparently, if you stare into the flames of a fire for long enough, you start to hallucinate.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll transport you into the book you're listening to.
Oh my, maybe.
Okay, this one's very nice too. Walk through an art museum. Oh,
I
No
don't
thanks.
know. No.
that sounds nice.
feel like
I
that's
disagree. That's just like a
distracting,
good
though.
one.
It
It's
sounds-
weird. If you tell someone that's your hobby, like that's weird. But I can get behind it.
Yeah, but ours comes with a lot of accessibility issues, right? Like we got to get somebody to explain the art, and then we got to sit with the art, and then somebody's got to guide us around. And
Go. Let me rephrase that. I'm stumbling around and smashing my kin into baseboards in an art museum while listening to an audiobook.
While touching things we're not supposed to be touching. Yeah.
Okay. Playing bongos.
While listening to an audiobook?
Oh my God. Are these real answers?
Yeah, I was gonna say, are these things you've tried, Jacob? What's going on?
Well, some of them I've tried, but I saw these online. I just looked up a bunch of lists, like things to do while listening to an audiobook, and there's like dozens of articles like this.
Maybe there's not other people
Not
playing
for me.
bongos, but it sounds very distracting still.
Boom, ding, 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 ding. Yeah, no, it's fun. Trust me.
Okay.
All right, and final one. I'm kind of outing myself here. Sit perfectly still like a psychopath.
Okay.
But listen, I'm not sitting perfectly still. I'm like fidgeting
2
with the
hours.
toy. I'm fidgeting with a Rubik's Cube, or I'm drinking
Did you
coffee.
research to find out if this was a factor of a psychopath before you put in psychopath?
No, I
No?
just said it was
All right.
psychopath behavior.
Anecdotally. Wow.
I'm not.
He is not a medical expert.
Not at all. I'm not a psychologist. Like, it's not. If you do that, you're
Might
not
not
a
even be a
psychopath.
psychopath. We don't know.
No, I'm really not. Anyways, after the break, we're going to be talking to Aamer Kahn. He's our audiobook curator, but today he prepared us a little trivia game revolving around autobiographies. That'll be fun after the break. You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review. I'm Jacob Szymanski. We'll be right back. Welcome back to AMI Audiobook Review. I'm Jacob Szymanski here with Ramya Amuthan, Nusina Dalmajid. And earlier in the episode, we always start with our quote of the day. And that quote of the day was, I don't want to put the world to rights. I just don't like people who put the world to wrongs. And that was brought by Aamer Kahn, who prepared a trivia game for us revolving around autobiographies. I really don't know what to expect. But Aamer, what made you choose this quote and where's it from?
It's from the Jack Reacher books, specifically the one titled 61 Hours by Lee Child. And it sort of goes to the ethos of Jack Reacher in terms of, he's sort of this wandering guy who is just interested in looking at things and going on his way. But he keeps coming across people who are not sort of who are lording over other people or doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. And he doesn't like that very much. And he has the skills to do something about it. And he's not shy to apply himself in those situations.
Well, we're not shy to apply ourselves to this trivia game. I'm really eager to get started on this. So what are the rules here?
So it's basically like a true and false sort of. So I'll give you guys a title of a book and I'll give you two options. And basically one is correct and one is not. They're all very sort of short titles, and some of them are a bit more descriptive than others.
Okay.
But basically, I'll give out a title, and then I'll give you two possible options, and you have a choice of A or B, and one is right or one is wrong. So we'll take it from there.
Okay.
Okay. You don't sound so sure, Rams.
I mean, I'm just curious about the options. Like, how are the options correlated to the title, Aamer?
They're basically the storylines.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Oh, so we have to guess the storylines and associate it to the title. Oh, I
All
like
the titles
that.
are real, though. We're trying to figure out.
All the titles are real.
Okay.
Is this a matter of whether they're an autobiography, a biography, or not?
Oh. Now, did you write some of these storylines yourself?
I wrote everything in myself, so
Okay, I'm loving it.
Oh my God, high effort.
I'm not giving you a paragraph worth of a synopsis. You know how much I dislike synopsis in general.
Yeah,
so.
well, I've in the past called you the king of one-liner reviews, so I'm sure this is...
That's very true of this particular type. So
Let's
I
go.
think it's easiest to go, by starting out the game and taking a look. I'll comment on some of these books as we go, just so it's not just a straight trivia game. I mean, it is audiobook review, and we should talk about the books a little bit more, right? So
Okay.
All right, let's do it.
Who would like to go
it's-
first?
Yeah, so it's Ramya versus me.
Yeah, Jacob's going to go first.
Okay, I'm
We're
going
gonna do-
first.
We're going to go head to head. Number one is the title is Celebrity in Death. So is it a modern day biography on Hollywood tragedies, including the author's own tragedy, or B, a novel in the Eve Dallas series?
A. It has to be A.
Uh,
I feel like
That
you
is
tricked me. It
incorrect.
felt too
Dallas,
obvious.
come on, he's a super fan, man.
You know Aamer better
So
than I
the Eve Dallas series is actually known as the In Death series. So all the titles have celebrity in death.
Oh, you told us
portrait
about
in
this
death.
too. Oh, I
Come
should have
on,
This
known
type of
this.
thing.
Oh.
Pay
Although I
attention.
will say it does sound plausible that it is a Hollywood tragedy, which is why it makes such a great question, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good. Oh, you tricked me. I was bamboozled. Okay, moving on.
I will say none of these are easy.
I was gonna say I talk so much trash. I'm gonna fail the next one. Okay, go.
I hope you get it wrong.
The next one is a one-word one.
Oh,
It's
wow.
called Persuader. The book name is Persuader. Is it a book in the Jack Reacher series? Or B, is it an autobiography of an FBI negotiator?
B. Oh.
Nice try, Rams. Nice try.
Okay. So it was Jack Reacher.
Yeah, Persuader is a novel in the Jack Reacher series. I think I said this before in the last session, but Lee Child in general, in my opinion, does not know how to name books at all. Persuader has almost nothing to do with the book, except there's a shotgun that was known as a Persuader back in the day. And he chose the title, which has almost nothing to do with the book, except that shotgun happens to be in the book.
Oh.
So, yeah, I'm not too thrilled about the way he chooses titles. There's another book which I recently read that has the towns of Hope and Despair. The town names are actually Hope and Despair. And Jack Reacher decides to go and check out what's going on in Despair and gets tossed out.
Huh.
Any guesses on what the title of the book is?
Hope.
The title of the book is Gone Tomorrow.
Oh.
Which, again, you would think that the title of the book would be Hope or Despair, or maybe
Right.
Hope and Despair, but
Yeah.
no, it's
Okay.
terrifying.
He's
really
interesting.
bad.
So far, both of these were not biographies.
So Jacob is up next. The title name is Metro Girl. Title is Metro Girl. So answer A is it the autobiography of New Yorker Brooke Shields, because Brooke Shields was from New York, or is it B, a book by Janet Ivanovich after her Stephanie Plum series?
I think it's A. This is a bit
Brooke
of a
Shields'
meta.
autobiography?
Yeah, it's Brooke Shields' autobiography because Really, I'm wrong again.
Stephanie Plum.
It's
a
Strikes
Stephanie Plum.
Again.
I was doing
It's
the meta
not a
answer.
Stephanie.
I was thinking
Yeah,
you
it-
would not possibly choose another non-autobiography for this autobiography quiz. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it's a double fake and a Sadiq to the side. But yes, this is a book by Janet Ivanovich. It's not in the Stephanie Plum series, but it's very similar. She wanted to write something that was fun and that was in a hot climate, so it is set in Miami. She's a big fan of NASCAR too, which I didn't know, and incorporates that into the storylines as well. So it's a great summer read, or if you're tired of this winter-like weather in spring, great read for that.
Now, sorry, did you say this is not part of the Stephanie Plum series?
It's not part of it. She
Oh.
wrote it after the Stephanie Plum series.
Ah.
I think she's taking a break a little bit, and
And
this
had
is
nothing
actually
to
start
do
of a
with
new
the Stephanie
series.
Plum.
Nothing to do with
Okay.
the Stephanie Plum series. Well, not yet anyway, but we know how authors love to cross over. So.
Yep.
Okay, Ramya, you're up next.
Okay.
It's another one-word title. This one is called Butterfly. And the hint I'll give is that all of these books are in the last 20 years. There's nothing like classic from like way back when or anything like that. So option A is the story of a Syrian refugee who was on a boat and had to get out of the boat and push the boat to save the other people
Oh
in the
my.
boat. And B is the story of the migration of butterflies from Canada all the way to Mexico, told in the first person.
No.
Like the perspective
the
of
first
the butterflies?
person?
The actual butterfly, yeah.
Well, that's cute, but I'll go with A.
That's right. That is correct.
Finally. I'm on the board.
Although I would seriously read a book about a butterfly in the first person that went from
Yeah.
Wait, did you
Canada
just
to
come up with that, Amer?
Of course.
I did.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I know.
Yo, I would read that in a heartbeat.
Canada to Mexico. I love it. So anyways,
bit of
but
one-line
actually
synopsis.
though, the actual book sounds intriguing.
Yeah, the actual book sounds very intriguing too. Sounds like a harrowing story. I mean, to be a refugee on a boat and to get out of it, to push it to save others is obviously an act of great heroism. It's a true story. Definitely a book that I have put up on my list. So the book name is called Butterfly.
Butterfly. Cool.
Okay, I need to redeem
Back to
myself.
Jacob. This one is not a one-word title, which for some reason I have an affinity for this particular game. The Art of Racing in the Rain is the name of the title. Is it A, the story of seven-time F1 world champion Lewis Hamilton and his life, or the story of a dog who believes he will be reincarnated in the form of a human race car driver?
This has to be the biography of Lewis Hamilton. I'm not going to overthink it.
Why? Why can't it be the dog?
Because sometimes in F1 they race in the rain. I don't know. It's like you're kidding me? No way, yo.
So for those that know, I'm a big Formula One fan, and one of my friends from the book club sent me this recommendation, and the synopsis literally reads that it's about a dog and his perspective on being reincarnated as a human, and that the human is a race car driver. And I still haven't opened the book yet because I still can't get past the synopsis.
I think Jacob's been stunned into silence. He's barely moving.
I think you had 8 questions prepared, and I got 3 wrong so far.
The wild part is he put it right after the butterfly perspective, so you're like, nah.
Yeah, I was like, that's too goofy. There's no,
You're
and
right.
it sounded like something Aamer could have come up with. He seemed like a pretty creative person.
Oh
So
my gosh.
oh my god.
So this
I'm
one,
sorry. So is there a biography of the Hamilton
of
character?
Lewis Hamilton, if there's
Right?
not, there will be soon probably. He's still racing, so he might not have time
okay.
for
Yeah,
that.
that's what I was gonna say. His story's not over yet.
So
In the
it's not. I mean, he is very much an advocate of black racing and having people in that racing space because, frankly, he's the only one that's been there for quite some time. And he's a big supporter of Black Lives Matter. He famously had the Mercedes team paint all their cars black. Following the pandemic, in support of Black Lives Matter and that initiative. So he is very motivated to do a lot of things. He was invited to the very famous Metro Gala Ball in New York, but did not go himself. He actually sent 2 Black designers instead of himself to promote their clothing and their line and to make that happen. So
cool.
yeah, very interesting individual, and I'm sure if he doesn't write a book himself, others will write books about him soon enough. The next one I'm going to skip over, and I'm going to give that one to Jacob because I think Ramya will have an unfair advantage on this one.
Oh.
So I'll give Ramya this particular one. This title says The Things They Carried. The Things They Carried. The autobiography of Tiger Woods' caddy. That's the guy who brings his drivers and other clubs and things with him, right, on the golf course. Or B, the autobiography of a Vietnam vet and his time in Vietnam, as well as how he dealt with the aftermath.
A. What?
I knew that was gonna be wrong.
So
Why?
The Things They
I
Carried
would
is actually
read that
rather a
autobiography,
famous.
by the way.
Yeah, that is. I sort of lied. I think this might be in the 20-year range in terms of it is a classic book, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. It is about his time in Vietnam, and the first portion of the book is literally all the stuff that they had to carry and that was brought in from America while they were in Vietnam. I took a crack at this book when I was, I think, in grade 9 or 8, junior high in any case, and it didn't really sink in for me, and I went back to it because I kept seeing it in different places and people kept recommending it. And at the second time around, I really found it powerful, especially for the second part of the book, because he goes not only into his own journey of how he dealt with the psychology of Vietnam, but also how some of his fellow people that came back dealt with it or didn't deal with it, and how that affected them permanently. So a powerful book, definitely young adult, but on the older side of young adult, I would say.
Some books take maturity to fully appreciate.
Of
And
course,
this
yeah.
sounds exactly like one of those books.
But who's going to write about being the caddy for Tiger Woods now? Somebody get on that.
That sounds boring.
No way. Kidding me?
I don't know. Given Tiger Woods' past, it might be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'll give this one to Jacob. Talking to Canadians is the name of the title. Is it A, Peter Mansbridge's Life and Times, or B, Rick Mercer's autobiography?
I feel like Rick Mercer's more the type to write a book. I'm going to go with Rick
And
Mercer.
Correct.
well done.
knew
Yeah. So famously, Rick Mercer
Are
had
you
a
finally
TV
on the board?
show. Yes.
Don't need to rub it in.
I believe you're both even at this point,
Yeah.
right? That's what you know.
Took him
Trash
a
talking
while,
over
though.
here.
Took him a while.
We're tied.
Hard,
No,
hard to trash talk when you have only 1 point yourself from it.
it's more about the time frame in which it took to
Right.
get the point. Come on.
Now, did you read this book by Rick Mercer?
I did not, but he famously had a TV show or a special that was called Talking to Canadians, I believe in the 90s, Talking to Americans. So I think this was a play on words for his own autobiography. He had this comedic bit, I think it was a TV show or a special or something, where he would go to America and ask some really basic questions about Canadians. And of course, Americans would have hilarious answers that they'd cherry pick. Things like, do all Canadians live in igloos and log
Yeah.
cabins? And they would say yes.
Right. Yeah, and they
so I
said
haven't
that
read it.
the Prime Minister of Canada was called Mr. Putin, and he asked that question to George Bush at one point, and George
Oh
Bush
my.
was like, "Oh yeah, I'm very much looking forward to collaborating with Mr. Putin."
So that's no, I haven't read Rick Mercer's autobiography. I imagine it'd be pretty interesting though, because he is from the East Coast, and those folks definitely have a great sense of humor. We've read it with the book club and in my book review, Critch's review,
Mark Critch's, Son of a
Mark
Critch.
Critch's, which was also a great autobiography, and actually a colleague of Rick Mercer, if I'm not mistaken, on This Hour Has 22 Minutes. So. Should be a good read if you haven't done it already. We're going to go to Ramya next, of course. This one I'm sure you're going to love. The title is called They Called Me God. Again, the title of the book is called They Called Me God. Is it A book about cults and how they form and the various people who are in them? Or is it B, the biography of a legendary baseball umpire?
Well, and they see these baseball umpires have a massive egos.
Well, I mean, as per the title, it would have been They Called Him God rather than he calling himself God. So who knows?
Yeah, so choose wisely, Ramya.
You got cults or baseball. Two very similar things.
Yeah, very. If you think about it, I'll go with A. Seriously?
Oh, wow. It is a very famous baseball umpire from back in the day, apparently. Apparently, they called him God. I didn't read this one either because with that title, I'm very unlikely to read that book.
I really want to read the cult book. You should have had alt books for the wrong answers that we could go home with as recommendations. Now we have to create our own.
You mean fake books?
Real books. Just the wrong answer for the question.
Last question of the night goes to Jacob. This will determine whether you guys stay tied or Jacob
All right.
ends up in the lead. This is going to be an interesting one for me personally because I'm curious to know. So the book title is called The Bridges of Madison County. Is it A biography of the architect who made all the covered bridges? Or a romance book about a photographer who falls in love with a married woman?
Huh? That's tough.
A sounds painfully boring, unless you're an engineer or a fan of bridges.
Wow.
And B is too out there to not be the actual answer. And I feel like I know your style of trivia mastering, Aamer, so I'm choosing B, story of a... Yay! Let's go!
Wow. If anything we learned about Aamer, the trivia master, by the end of this game, 1 point.
So I'm going to have to change up my games now. He's got me. But interestingly enough, both feature the covered bridges of Iowa, which apparently are a thing. So The Bridges of Madison County is actually a very famous movie from the 90s, I think. Again, it's one of these movies from the 90s that has a crazy synopsis, but apparently people really adore and love it for whatever reason. But the photographer in this case has come to Iowa to photograph these covered bridges in Iowa and ends up falling in love with this married woman.
Huh.
This was a recommendation?
This was a famous movie from the 90s. I just thought I would check it out to see if it was an actual book first. And guess what? Happens
It
to be
was,
a
right.
book. With the title like The Bridges of Madison County, I'm like, I don't know. It's probably a book, but yep, it turned out to be a book.
Well, thank you so much for setting up this little trivia game. This is very different than what we usually do, so it was a nice little change of pace. But on the topic of biographies and autobiographies, Aamer, you're our show's audiobook curator. Do you have any biographies or autobiographies that you would especially recommend that you really resonated with?
I think we've talked about quite a few of them, but I'll mention them again. I mean, some are great because they're humorous. Some are great because they're really serious. So some of them may or may not be for everyone. But I think one that's universally really well done is Trevor Noah's Born a Crime.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about it a lot, but I mean, it does a great job of being humorous, being entertaining, and then also educating people about South Africa and apartheid, which, you know, if you're not familiar with that, then it's a great way to sort of introduce the subject without being too serious. On the other side of the scale, a very serious sort of autobiography is I Shall Not Hate, which I have mentioned before. It's got a much longer title. I think it's called I Shall Not Hate, a Gaza's doctor's story of something or other. Sorry, it's a very long title, but this has to do with the Palestinian conflict. And the doctor is a doctor who lives in Gaza and who lost two daughters in the conflict. This is much before this particular recent conflict. He actually lectures and studies here in Toronto now as a doctor. But those are there. Others which we've sort of mentioned throughout the time was Will by Will Smith. I thought that was a greatly well done autobiography. And of course, this is prior to his controversy and the Oscars and all that sort of all the sort of events. Son of a Critch was great too. If you're looking for a great laugh, again, nothing earth-shattering in the book, but if you're looking for a good time, that's a great one. And sometimes it's interesting how you read books and they come sort of one after the other. I know, Ramya, you had mentioned, you know, reading To Kill a Mockingbird and then Where the Crawdads Sing, and
feeling very similar vibes.
I had a similar experience with Tina Fey's autobiography, as well as Karen Ryan, which I reviewed for the show a couple of times before, who's a Canadian-born but British actress. And it's interesting to see how she went from Canada to there. She led a very interesting life too, and not a very well-known celebrity here in Toronto, but it's interesting to see how, you know, somebody can go from working at a Hooters to, you know, selling out a major venue in London for comedy. So
yeah.
So you just gave us a whole bunch of recommendations just for fun. Yep. Are there any autobiographies?
Autobiography category too.
Yeah. For the next quiz.
Yeah, autobiographies that you didn't like, that you thought were not good.
None comes to mind, but I typically expunge those from my memory in general. Even terrible books, I'd have to think about what I've come across. I didn't give Britney Spears a try. The only one that comes to mind is Barack Obama's autobiography.
Did you get through it?
No, and that's sort of my criticism of it. I did get through Michelle Obama's Becoming, but it was an actual effort. Both are excellent orators and narrators, except they are extremely slow, both of them.
I've said the exact same sentiment on this show.
Yeah. And I sped up Michelle to, I think, about 150% on Dolphin Easy Reader, and that's the only way I got through it. With Barack Obama's book, at any speed, I could not get through that material. It was
quite a drag.
Unbelievably dry.
That biography, does a lot of it cover his time in the White House or before?
Before as well.
Or is
before?
It's written like like a history textbook. I'm not sure why I couldn't get through either of those, and I felt the style was very similar.
So Michelle's was about her time in the White House as First Lady, and did have quite a few interesting things in it. Barack actually has more than one. Actually, Michelle has more than one now too. So both of them have multiple books. So I have a feeling Michelle's newer book, I think it's The Light We Carry or something like that, would be more illuminating.
Unintended.
But unintended pun there. But yeah, I mean, and sometimes things grab you in different ways. I mean, Becoming is the book I read from Michelle Obama, and the book starts with her making this grilled cheese sandwich after she's been first lady. And I will not lie, the whole book I'm waiting for her to get back to that grilled cheese sandwich.
It was all a
Never
metaphor.
gets there. Right.
And it does not circle back to it. And I'm like, how did they miss this? She needed to get back to that grilled cheese sandwich, because it's one of those sort of like psychological things from a humanity perspective. If you put something in the microwave, you want to see it come out, or you want to hear the microwave ding or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I know the book is not about a grilled cheese sandwich. It's about her time in the White House. And there's some great anecdotes about, what she decided to do and how she broke through some barriers to at the White House, including, using the White House gardens for growing vegetables very famously. And what the mood and what the culture was like at the White House in terms of, everything's almost like a museum. You can't do something because it's been like that for 150 years. Similar to the way The Crown sort of described, Queen Elizabeth first coming to the palace and being like, okay, no, you can't change that because that's the way it's been, sort of rooted in tradition and all that. So, when somebody like Michelle Obama was like, well, maybe we can put a kitchen garden where the roses are, and people are like, what are you talking about? That's unheard of. But again, she had great intentions, and she brought school children to learn about soil and grow vegetables and things. So a lot of great sort of anecdotes and pieces about what it's like to be the first lady, and how you can sort of shape it to be your own positive experience.
Well, political figures like Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, they write these books for two reasons. One, well, money. Two, these types of books are really useful for like historians in the future.
Well, that's what
right?
it reads
It's like it feels like a history textbook, eh?
Mm-hmm.
But it's very useful. Like when you look at how people do history, like actually go and find sources. Like they want stuff that's directly from the mouth of the people involved. Right? It's their first first degree sources, right? Very, very, very useful.
Well, especially Michelle Obama, as she went into a lot of the, growing up and how her parents treated her, her family life, and just the dynamic of how things were in her home, and then bringing that into the White House and her own family. I didn't even get to most of it, to be honest, but it read very much like just the accounting of who she is and her identity and her history.
And I think the thing that separates that particular piece of writing from other autobiographies is that she put a lot of feeling into it as well.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it was really touching and very personal to learn about how, she, had children, frankly, right? And in terms of, she could have very easily not put that in the book, but, her feelings on how, she had to give herself injections and things just to, start a family, and what that felt like, because, her husband obviously had to do nothing. So, or next to nothing in terms of, nothing in terms of medical, right? Medical treatments, and, sort of the priorities of things when you get to a position of that nature, in terms of, how much priority do you put on your family? How much do you put on the country, and where's that line?
Yeah, the balance.
And those types of things.
And imagine her persona. To be fair, like the way that this book is written and the character that we read about is her persona as we know it, socially, politically as well. So,
yeah, the other one that I recommend for leadership is Colin Powell's biography. So he has two. One is about leadership, and one is more of his actual autobiography. I recommend the leadership one. I haven't gotten into his actual autobiography piece, but again, I think it's one of these books that focuses more on leadership and trying to help people in terms of how to lead people, rather than sort of, singing your own praises and those types of things. So it reads very humble. It is narrated by him, and if you've ever heard him speak, he's a fantastic speaker.
Yeah.
And it does go into his life and how it applies to leadership in a lot of ways. For those that don't know, he spent pretty much his entire adult life in the United States military. So going from, actually being a soldier to being a general to being the Secretary of State.
Oh, that actually sounds fascinating.
yeah.
Hey, Ramya, you mentioned the Britney Spears autobiography
The
earlier.
Woman in Me.
Yeah, The Woman in Me. I find a big pitfall that a lot of autobiographies fall into is to just tell everything in a chronological order. This happened, that this happened, then this happened, then this happened. And it just becomes very monotonous, even though like they're interesting stories. It's just not a good way of storytelling because they're not making connections or any particularly interesting like observations. Everything's just very matter of fact. And I thought that was the case with another biography that I read. It was a Stevie Wonder one called Signed, Sealed, Delivered. It was just so dry and based on accounts of like his friends and family and stuff like that. And he didn't have any input on it. And it just, I would not recommend it. It was boring as hell.
And I think that's how I felt about Ellen DeGeneres' autobiography. It was very short, so it didn't take a lot to kind of flip through it. It's called Seriously, I'm Not Kidding, or something like that. And she's, like, I find her to be very funny, very conversational, her interview styles and things like that in real life. But the book, I thought, was just, and she wrote it kind of like a diary, a Dear Diary entries. And I thought it was just lame. You know, she took this approach that should be entertaining, that could be very entertaining.
Harsh.
I know, and sadly, I don't think it lived up to what it could have. And it's my own personal expectations of her. But I really do critique, especially comedians, when it comes to writing. Mark Critch's Son of a Critch was hysterical, and so was Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. And sometimes I think I appreciated the books and their writing more than I do their hosting or their comedy. But with Ellen DeGeneres, it was quite a different take for me.
Yeah, I think I had that experience with I Am Malala Yousafzai's book, not in terms of the comedy, because she's not a comedian, but I was expecting something more more mainstream from the book. I mean, there's several versions of the books. I haven't read them all yet. One is a children's version, one is not. Her background is obviously that she was shot in the head by the Taliban in Pakistan, won the Nobel Peace Prize, I believe, the youngest person to do so, if I recall. And she studies in England right now, but her book started off with like the history of her hometown or birthplace in the Korangal Valley, I think. And there's, it goes back to tribal times, and I'm just like, what? Why am I reading this? I want to know about her. And she's talking about, generations above her. And I got to about, the point where she's born and her father's running a school, but incredibly, incredibly dry read, in my opinion, and not what I expected to learn about. And maybe it comes in the last sort of quarter of the book, but goodness gracious, it's a dry read, in my opinion.
As a good one, though, and I'm not sure how often I've actually mentioned this on the show, More Myself by Alicia Keys was a really lovely autobiography, just so endearing.
It's been recommended to me by many people.
It is so sweet, guys. I don't know how else to say it, really. Like, she's just she has a beautiful voice, beautiful style of narrating, very soothing, and that fits her writing very well. She's lyrical in her music also, if you listen to her music. But yeah, she just gets into everything. It's very warm and comforting. She has some travel in there that she gets into, her romance life, and just her music, obviously, overall. But I thought the audiobook was super cool because other people intro her chapters for her in their own words and their own voices. So it was a nice kind of package. That's it.
That's it. That's all the autobiographies we've all read. That's all of them. But I do want to tie it back to the conversation we had in the first segment because, Aamer, I want to ask you, what are your ideal conditions for being fully immersed in an audiobook? Now, this has nothing to do with like the audiobook you're reading. Just like, where do you want to be when you're listening to a book? Like how do you set yourself up?
So for me, I recently found out that having earphones in is the optimum for me. I recently tried to, set up a speaker and try to do different things while I was listening to the audiobook, and it just doesn't do it for me. So everybody has a little, quirks and things. Some people like to sit in a particular place and be comfortable around the fireplace, those stereotypical type of things. For me, I'm really not bothered. I mean, I could be doing dishes, or I could be sitting on the sofa, or I could be doing, waiting for a ride or something like that to go somewhere, or being on the bus. But for me, I think the factor is to have the earphones in. If it's playing on a speaker, it's a different experience for me entirely.
Respect. It's easier to get distracted if it's just out of a speaker.
Yeah.
I get it. All right. That's it for this episode. Aamer, thank you so much.
I'm happy to be here, and so glad that you guys enjoyed the game.
That was really fun.
That was Aamer Kahn, our regular contributor. Here, he's our AMI audiobook review book curator. And next week, what are we talking about next week, Rams?
I don't know. What are we talking about? I don't have my script. You told me to put it away. Is it Sela?
Yo, good guess. That's a right answer.
Hey.
Yeah. You're right. We're talking to Sela about, well, it's actually their 10th anniversary, so we're going to touch on that.
What?
Yeah, happy birthday.
Happy anniversary.
And we're also going to be talking about literary awards and a little bit about their influence, their power, and how there's one for every single genre, it seems like. And you should be following them because they're great for recommending books and finding your next read. But what I'm especially excited about is we're finally going to do a review of a book that Sarah Hillis suggested to us.
Yes.
Beware the Woman by Megan Abbott, which I really enjoyed. I'm super looking forward to this one.
Same. And I read it a while ago, so I feel like I have to go through it again, but it was so good.
All right, that's it for us. We want to hear your feedback. You can call us at 1-866-509-4545. Tell us whatever you want, book recommendations, comments, whatever you hear on the show. You can also leave us an email at feedback@ami.ca. Again, that's feedback@ami.ca. I'm Jacob Szymanski with Ramya Amuthan. Our technical producer is Nushin Abdel-Majid. Happy audiobook listening.